Welcome to the Thriving Tides podcast. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Julianne. If you're an entrepreneur who loves self-care, you're in the right place.
We can't wait to share our experiences with you.
Yeah, that's some good wine.
Delicious.
Delicious. Thank you, Lesley. So welcome back to Thriving Tides. We're here in the closet with Lesley Quinn, and we're really excited to have her here tonight. She brought us some delicious red wine.
Super tasty.
But it's not the only reason we brought her.
Yeah. Are you guys sure you didn't only invite me to have the wine?
Not at all. Not at all. That was just a perk.
Okay, good.
Icing on the top. Before we go any further, because I feel like I'll forget, I want to introduce Lesley, tell you a little bit about her and why we invited her to come here today. She's a fellow Islander, proud PEI girl who took off for many years as well, similar to me. She left for roughly 13 years, she's telling us, with little stints back home because, you know, we can never stay away from that long, especially in the summer.
Yes.
But she has now made her way back home to PEI, where we hope she's going to stay. And she is exploring wine in many different ways, which is really cool. And this journey for her began back when she was living in the Cayman Islands, working at the Ritz-Carlton. She had the opportunity to become a junior sommelier and fell in love with wine and really hasn't looked back, I think,
This
since.
is true.
And who can blame her? What a cool job. Along with this, you know, she's been able to travel between work and wine all across Canada to many different countries, really cool places. She's been, I'm looking at my notes because there's a lot of places to remember. Turkey, France, Italy, Austria, Chile, Portugal, California. I'm sure you can recognize those as very strong wine regions if you walk through a wine store.
This is correct.
So there's a rhyme to her reason, a reason to her rhyme. I don't know. We're the worst at those sayings.
Yeah, we're not. We need to get like a list of sayings or something.
We will. We're working on it. But she's really good at what she does too. I personally have learned a lot at different wine tastings or just benefiting from being her friend. But she's got the backup for it too. In 2017, she became Atlantic Canada's top sommelier. That's a really amazing title and something you should be very proud of.
Thank you.
And for the last year and a half, she's been growing her business, Stellar Somm, where she does wine, brings wine to so many people. She does wine. But through, you know, like wine tastings, whether private events in restaurants, helps restaurants with their wine lists, like honestly, this list will go on, and I'm sure you're going to tell us a little bit more about it tonight too, but so many cool things and such a unique business that this island didn't have. So it's really exciting to have you here.
Thank you.
To talk to us tonight, and yeah. Yay.
I was gonna say, I'm really excited. This is the first time I'm ever drinking wine in my closet too. So this is really exciting for me.
It's a first.
I feel like we're back like in a slumber party, and it's like we snuck a bottle of Mom's homemade wine.
It tastes a little better than homemade wine, maybe.
Yeah,
but,
I'm not gonna lie. It's definitely it is a little bit more care and attention than what a wine kit can deliver.
So tell us. Maybe show us a little bit of your trade by telling us what we're drinking here.
Sure. Okay. So what we are enjoying actually is a Cabernet Sauvignon from Washington. It's from the Columbia Valley. Now, you might think of Washington as being, you know, Seattle, cold, rainy. You're telling me that's a good place to grow grapes? Not really. But if you go over the Cascade Mountains, you actually end up in like a desert climate. It's dry. It's hot. It's perfect for growing red wine or red grapes. Red wine. Imagine if it was that easy.
Just grow right on the vines.
Right out of the
I love it.
So,
Give me lots of those trees.
that's right. I'll take 5 from my backyard.
Can we grow one here, please?
So a Cabernet Sauvignon is probably the boldest out of red wine. It has a lot of tannins, and tannins are a textural element in red wine. It comes from the skins, the pits, the seeds, and in some cases even the stems of a grape. So it's that dryness wine sensation, I always like to refer to it as like, you know, when you leave a tea bag in your tea for too long, you take it out, you're like, take a sip, you're like, oh my God. Or if you're a cat person and your cat ever licks your hand and you get that like dry scent, that's tannins. That's what tannins feel like on your tongue.
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah. I like to use, you know, sensory.
I like it. It's another version of ASMR, right?
Exactly. So I'm a big fan of trying to make wine a really digestible, fun, easy to approach topic because, to be perfectly honest, I know a lot of people feel really intimidated by it. And I think what I love about what I can do is, you know, I'm a bit of a geek in general. So I took this topic that can be really intense and I kind of try to make it more dissectable. It makes it so that people can really go to the liquor store and go in and say, hey, I really like that drying sensation in a wine. That I really like the cat tongue feeling. Could I have a Cabernet Sauvignon, please? I need a little bit more cat tongue.
I'm going to go into the liquor store and say that, and I'm going to probably film the reaction. It's going to be great.
They're going to hate me over there. But the other really cool thing about Cabernet Sauvignon is that it has this really bold, dark fruit flavor too. And so I know that like describing wine can be really intense for a lot of people. It's almost like turned into a poetry, right? Like, you know, enjoying this blackberry pie in a summer's fields of violets growing. Like it's scary in a way to try to describe wine in that way.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know what accent that was. But if you take wine in this way, my little cheat for all of our listeners is that your white wine is going to have some type of apple in it, and your red wine is going to have some type of cherry. Don't necessarily try to pinpoint exactly. Try to think more about the character of the fruit. So where is that apple in its lifespan? Is it a tart apple? Is it a ripe apple? Is it dried? Has it been baked or stewed? Is it jammy? So with this one, there's definitely black cherry in here. What would you guys say? Where do you think this cherry is in its lifespan? Test time!
I didn't know there was going to be a test.
I think his character is he wears a top hat.
And a bow tie.
And he's got a bow tie. And he's the pick of the crop.
He's very
Let me pretend to be refined and smell it here.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Give a little
swirl.
sniff.
'Cause it's not really sticking to the glass or anything. Like, it's pretty light. Like,
the
it's
legs.
Thank you.
I know about that.
That's right. But this is the one thing I'll always say too is that if you ever hear somebody saying, oh, the legs on the wine are really good, that doesn't mean the wine is good or bad. So that's just one thing. You can have really great legs on a wine. It doesn't mean that it's a great wine.
A person could have great legs and not be a great person.
This is very true. This is very
That
true.
is very
And
true.
The exact same thing for wine.
Rule of thumb.
Rule of thumb.
Remember, great
Good
legs doesn't mean great
don't
person.
mean shit.
I don't know where this, it's like kind of, I don't know, is it like middle ground-ish? Like it's not super sweet, but it hasn't really crossed over.
Exactly. Like
would
it's
be my
almost
guess.
like perfectly ripe. Like it's just about to fall off the vine. Like there's this like richness to it for sure. Like it's been sun-kissed, but there's still like some acidity, some tartness to it left. So it's still ripe fruit, but it's certainly starting to go past that point, right? Like it's getting, not go past like in a bad way, but just like in the sense that it's almost stewed or jammy, almost. But there's this really nice balance between ripe and tart. And that's what
really
I love
nice.
about it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta love Cabernet Sauvignon. It grows in just about every part of the world. I still haven't done this yet in PEI, and I would love to for any cab lovers out there. I'd love to do an around the world with Cabernet Sauvignon.
Cool.
To see how the grape variety tastes different in each region, to really showcase how climate and soil, what is known in the wine world, in the fancy wine speaking term of terroir, you get what that really can make a wine taste different. I know.
Sounds fancy.
Just drop that in there.
I like it. I love that you can be so refined in your knowledge, but also make it so accessible to people like us who know nothing about wine except for it makes me feel good. And it tastes nice.
Well, I try never to forget what it felt like when I first got, like when I was starting out as a sommelier. I never want to forget that feeling of being like, oh my God, there is so much to know. This is so intimidating. I'm never going to know it all. And I want to be able to never forget that and to be able to always, to never be like, well, obviously.
How do you not taste that?
How do you not know that?
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
never want to get to that point. One of my favorite stories to tell is I remember like my interview for my junior sommelier position. They asked me what the grapes of Champagne were, and I went, oh yeah, I guess there would be like specific grapes that go into Champagne. I suppose that is a fair. So they're like, do you want to list one? And I was like, Pinot Grigio? They were like, no, it is not Pinot Grigio.
But nice try.
They're like, okay, we're a little nervous about giving you the job now. So essentially the job was contingent on me passing my first level exam. So I did study very hard for the next 3 months. Passed the introductory level, went on to study even further, and passed the certified about a year and a half after that.
Wow.
That's a lot of studying. And you really probably haven't stopped since.
Nope.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I heard that it's like a really grueling
It is.
course to
It
take.
is, unfortunately. I mean, I still study, but I've tried to switch it up from studying out of a need to earn this like high ranking, to take it to the point where it's so serious, because I was starting to fall out of love with it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like, you know, the same thing would be for, I think, a lot of people who love sports. Like if you want to compete at the Olympic level, it becomes your whole world. And I'm okay with just competing at the maritime level. And I feel pretty okay with having Atlantic Canada's top sommelier.
Yeah.
When I went to compete in the nationals, I was put firmly in my place by those in Toronto and Vancouver. And I'm very okay with it because, you know, I like my life to have more to do with than just wine.
Yeah.
I really, like, I love wine.
Yeah.
I love talking about it. And the tough part is, like, the sommelier exams are not just about wine, too. Like,
Really?
you have to know about classic cocktails. So I'll explain, like, my last exam. So it was 3 days. The first day was service. So it's like a mock restaurant. And you go in and you have these super intimidating master sommeliers who are just grilling you.
Oh gosh.
And so you have to start off by making a cocktail. I had to make an Americano, and I thought it was hilarious because I was like, would you like the coffee or the cocktail? And they're like, obviously the cocktail. I was like, keep moving here. You know what we're asking.
Like, I'm funny. Just laugh.
Come on, it's part of my shtick.
Give me the extra point.
my charm.
Exactly.
My
Give me
charm.
the 0.5 for being funny, please. I can really use that 0.5. Yes. So you had to make the Americano, and the whole time you're making the drink, they're starting to ask about the wines on the list. And so mine was a fake Italian restaurant. And so they were asking me, what would you pair with this particular dish out of this region of wines? And so you're just going, and I mean, it got to the point where they were asking me, okay, so Barolo is a region in Italy that grows Nebbiolo grapes. It is divvied up into single vineyards as well. They call them Soris, S-O-R-I, with the accent, not like the band, who I love, if you're listening. And then they were at the point where they were asking me about each individual vineyard and how many producers were allowed to grow grapes on that. And there's like, I don't know how many Soris there are in Barolo, but there's a lot. And it was at a point where I was just like, you know, I'm going to have to check my book on that, because that's what they try to do. They try to get you to a point where you have to admit that you don't know something.
Right.
Okay. So
that was just one component. That was just one day. The next day was a written exam, and the written exam involved like inventory numbers. Your bartender has been pouring by the glass at an improper price point for the last 2 nights. How do you make that up? There was a beer flight, and you had to sell the beers, had to decide which restaurant you would put each one of the beers at. There was a picture of an old man. Who's that? Who's the dude? Yeah.
Who's the dude?
Who's this old dude on your sheet of paper?
Wow. Did you get that right?
I did actually.
Dude, who was it?
It was a Barolo winemaker. So, and I had studied Italy really hard. I'd been to Italy I've been lucky enough to visit Italy a couple of times. So Italy is pretty firmly under my belt. So I was really lucky to have gotten that as a part of the exam. And there was a picture of a vineyard as well. And you had to name what vineyard it was. And I knew what that one was too. But it's a really famous, like, it's a really noticeable vineyard. Like, it has like a hit. Anyway.
Just take the win, Les. Just take the win.
So that was day 2.
Oh my gosh.
And day 3 is probably the scariest part.
Like, it sounded scary up till now.
Until then. So it's blind taste testing. Again, in front of Master Somms.
Oh, God.
And you have 24 minutes and you have 6 wines. And you gotta, like, break them down as quickly and as correctly as possible. So, and not even just like, I think this is a Cabernet Sauvignon. You're saying, I think this is a 2017 Cabernet Sauvignon from the Columbia Valley of Washington. And it's, And then, like, you step away and just like, what just happened? I just blacked out.
I bet. Oh my goodness.
And you walk out, and of course there's all these other Somms that are like dying. Like, I think it was, like, number 3 was definitely Chenin Blanc. And then you walk to the next group. Number 3 was definitely Gruner Veltliner. And you're like, what?
I don't know.
Call out those grapes.
That's, I did not write that down.
Exactly. Yeah. So it can be really scary. And I think the pass rate is only about 30%.
Wow.
Yeah. So it like takes it to the extreme level. But yeah, it's kind of fun to, like, when you get it right, when you get, like, there was one question that was so perfect because there was a winery that I visited in Italy that he raises a particular type of cattle. And there was that type of steak on the menu. And they're like, what would you recommend with this steak? And I was like, you should go with the Fontoti because he raises those cows as well.
So cool.
Yeah. So, like, little things like that.
Nice catch. Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, just when moments like that happen. But it does sometimes feel very like, oh my God, that's like just pure luck.
Wow.
Just by places I visited.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Such a cool journey. Like, you think that you could just be like, I'm a wine expert. Look at me because I love it. But wow, like, the amount of time and effort and just dedication that goes into getting to where you are is really impressive, right? And a true testament to your love for wine and wanting to help other people love it too. Yes. I think that's a big part of who you are and what you do. And that's really cool. And you've done really great things with it.
Thanks.
It's been incredible. I met Lesley when she was just starting her business.
This is true.
And so it's been really cool to see you grow and evolve and have the highs and the lows and the, what am I doing? And I'm on top of the world and just everything in between that most business owners go through. I'd love to say just in the beginning, but I'm guessing it's probably going to be this way forever for us.
I think so.
But I think that's okay too.
Yeah. How many times have I told you, I've completed my government, my provincial and my federal government profile. I'm going to apply for a government job. I'm going to go back in. And then I never do. I just keep going. But yeah, there's, you have those moments of being like, why am I doing this? Why am I... Am I ever going to make any money?
Right.
Am I going to be, is this a crazy idea?
Yeah. And, maybe it is, but it's working.
Well, I mean, if this week was any, this week has been wild. It's been really good. I got a big thanks to Discover Charlottetown in wanting to put on so many wine tastings as part of the Scarecrows and the City Festival. So I feel very blessed to have done I'll be doing 4 tastings in a row for the first time since I started.
That's amazing.
For sure. I think any entrepreneur can testify that partnerships and networking and whatnot can be so huge for growth, especially in a startup when you're just kind of establishing yourself, things like that. Tell us about your approach to partnerships or what that's kind of looked like for you for the first little bit.
For the first little bit, I was saying yes to everybody, anybody that wanted to work with me, I was saying yes to. And I'm slowly, finding that balance between knowing, okay, I want to keep working with this person versus I don't want to work with this person. It's just too it's too complicated. It's too much work for too little payoff. That's been a common one, because the tough part about my service is that you really just get it's an experience. It's not an actual like product. So sometimes it's hard to put a price on that. And what does make it extra hard is wine is expensive, especially a lot of the wines that I like. So when I show up to a tasting, I think a lot of people think like, oh, you know, how much is it going to cost? But then like just the wine alone is going to run you around 100 to 150. So it can get expensive. So it's been a fun moment. I would say I'm like 90% still saying yes to just about everybody and anything that comes my way. But I have like, you know, big fishes in my sights that I have gotten no's from, that I just have gone back for more and more and more until I got a yes. And notables, and the PEI Liquor Commission was a big one for me because they said no to me. God, I want to say 5 or 6 times with different projects that I came to them with, and like different ideas, different ways that I felt like we could work together. And it wasn't until they opened Notables and I came to them with, you have this space, this is what we can do. I think it's going to be a big success for not only me, but for the store. People will shop afterwards. And so far, we've done 2 tastings, and they've sold out the day we've released tickets. Both of them. So I'm like, told you. Told you.
Yeah.
I mean, let's keep doing them. Please don't get mad at me for saying that.
Oh, yeah. But it's hard for people sometimes when they're just in their routine or doing their thing, you know, like...
Especially when you're going to some people and they're just looking at the numbers of it. They're not thinking of the experience and that, okay, this may result to something, right? Yeah. And you probably get that even with like going to restaurants and stuff, that people are like, oh, well, I don't want to spend this much extra if I could just pick off the top tier ones from the wine list of 2019, right?
Yeah.
And it's so much more than that too. So that's really awesome that you persevered and you kept going for the yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. It resulted in definitely a couple of moments of being like, oh, why am I doing this? They're never gonna, and just feeling really defeated. And also feeling, you know, kind of come after. Like I felt like they not only did they not want to work with me, but they didn't want me to have a business at all. And I was like, do you not see that like we work together? Like we work, our businesses feed into each other.
Right.
Yeah. So
collaboration over competition.
Yes, exactly. So I'm really, really glad that they're on board now, and I look forward to hopefully many more collaborations with them.
So I'll definitely go, because I'm one of those people I go to. This is bad. So we usually have a wine kit because we're pretty cheap. But when I do get like wine, I get the ones that are on sale and that have a pretty label.
But it's good that you brought this up, Steph, because I've actually talked to. Do you go to the wine kit up in West Royalty? Is the like wine kits actually the store?
Yeah, I think they moved to like the Leon.
Yes,
area.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I've actually sat down with him and we've talked about ways to collaborate. So this is one of those situations where I did say yes, and I was kind of like, oh, like, is this going to hurt my brand? But my brand is about helping people fall in love with wine.
Yeah.
Who am I to say like has to be blah, like if you
from the liquor store,
has to be X amount of dollars, like and when I tasted them, like I said, like I think that there's extreme value there, and I think that at a certain price point it over delivers. So, and versus what you can find on the liquor shelf at that same price point, you can't find anything at that price point. And even like the up to $15 a price point, I think it delivers quite well. Like the Viognier I tried tasted like Viognier. Like it tasted like I'm not going to call it out because I don't want to lose support from some people. But it tasted like a $19.99 Viognier that you buy at the LCC. Awesome. So if you can get it for $7.99 a bottle instead, like why not? And there's a certain like really cool aspect to it. So we're sitting down next month because he got busy because of the move. I've been busy because of work. So we're sitting down next month to see about different ways to collaborate. So
That's so cool.
You shouldn't be embarrassed.
Hey, that's awesome. I think that's so cool. It's a true testament to you to keep going with all the no's that you've heard too, because that can be very defeating. Yes. So like what did you do to pick yourself back up or to get yourself to keep going, especially not even just to keep going in general, but to keep going back to the same people that were telling you no again and again? So many people after the first no would be like too embarrassed or not sure, but you kept going for it. So like, talk about that, please.
I would usually typically make you take me out on a hike, and we would talk things through. And I would actually, it was really funny listening to you talk about being on a hike the other day with a friend, and I was like, hey, that was me. I was the friend. So I think it would be getting outside, hiking, whatever you need to do to just kind of clear your mind and just kind of talk it through. And, I just would come back with different ideas. And I knew that, I definitely was frustrated, and, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, I had my moments of cursing the nose and being pretty frustrated and angry. But then I really tried to sit and say, okay, you just have a good idea. They're going to say yes. This is going to work. Just try it again. And every single time I came with more details too, like, this is how much it would cost. This is how much you stand to make from it. And I came with more, instead of just a general concept, I came with like a strict set of like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. Oh, I just hit the thing.
It's all good. You did warn us about the hand talking.
I did.
Yeah. Very cool. So each time you like learned or reflected on what did I do? How can I do it differently? Instead of just like, like a kid who's like, why? Well, why? Well, why? Well, why? Like, you actually changed the conversation, changed the details, and
figured out what they needed to hear to make the idea go forward. And that it's not so much the idea that they needed to hear. They needed to see like the numbers. They needed to see how they were going to make money, and they needed better projections for what that was going to look like.
Cool.
Yeah.
Short break to top up our wine.
Yes.
That sound must
delicious.
Just be so good, too.
I was going to say,
can we hear it?
Oh, well, that sounded a little like a bathroom.
For the people listening, Lesley is pouring wine right now.
She's not going to the bathroom.
Amazing. Thank you.
It's just our Tupperware table.
Yeah, don't put it on your pants either.
Yeah, don't put it on your pants.
All right. So as we go, I love the concept of the business, and I'm curious to know, how long was it stewing in the back of your mind before you put it out into the world?
The slightly embarrassing thing to admit is that pretty much I got to a point where I had to leave Nova Scotia. Like, I just mentally, I wasn't happy. I was, some things were happening with the job that I was in that I wasn't happy with, and I just had to get out. So I came home, and I think it was May. So is that Mother's Day? Mother's Day is in May? Yeah.
Yep.
And I kind of panicked, and I kind of just quit my job. And then I was like, oh God, what am I going to do? And then I came home, and, I had done a couple of tastings in Nova Scotia, just some in-home ones, and I thought that I could build on that. And I knew the food scene was so great here. There's so many good restaurants, and people are trying new stuff all the time. And I just saw a gap, and I saw an opportunity to work. And I have relationships with a lot of the restaurants already, even though I haven't lived here in quite some time. It just kind of grew from there. So I feel like, do you remember our first goal setting session? Like,
yes.
I was going to write a book. I wasn't even going to do business.
So true.
So things kind of grew from there, I guess. Like, it was more of a let's jump and then throw some things down and see what works.
Hopefully it's a soft landing.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
I mean, being from here, having my whole family here, I knew that my soft landing was the support of my family. So I knew that no matter what happened, my mom would be there to pick me up. And the good thing about having a career is that there's almost always a restaurant that's willing to hire. And even though I've been a sommelier for the last decade of my career, I would not be above taking whatever role I needed to take to pay the bills. Right. So I knew that if I knew I could get in at a restaurant if it came down to that.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I was going to say, that's something I'm curious about just because, I don't really know your industry. If someone graduates from being a sommelier, what do they do? Like, they don't obviously all start a business right away.
No.
They usually go to a restaurant? Is that?
Typically. So usually the trajectory is you start off in a restaurant and you kind of fall in love with wine. And then you start going through the training. And what's very different about the Maritimes versus like big cities and you're starting to see more in Toronto and Vancouver, but like New York City, you will have sometimes 4 or 5 dedicated sommeliers that their entire job is to lead you through wine throughout the meal.
Wow.
So, and
like in addition to your server?
In addition to your server. Yeah.
So
your
the server doesn't have to be that expert.
Exactly.
Wow.
So they see you looking at the wine list. They say, let me go get the sommelier for you. And the sommelier will come over. They'll, make some suggestions for the night. And in a lot of like big companies like Ritz-Carlton, they have like what they would call kind of their beverage professionals who make the wine list for all the different hotels, restaurants, everything like that. And then a lot of them some will graduate into doing wine rep work, or some will go vice versa. They'll start with doing wine rep work, which is representing a brand like Dan Durand, which is who represents this wine. Nice little plug there for you guys.
Love it.
But Dan Durand has like a bunch of different brands from a bunch of different countries. And so they have people who go into restaurants and sell those wines. So they're your wine rep. And like the other people, like other roles for sommeliers would include wine buyers. It'd be a dream. I know this sounds crazy, but it would be a dream to be a wine buyer for like Costco. And honestly, after I left the restaurant scene, and the reason I left the restaurants was because I was just getting too old for it. And like,
you're so old.
It was, the being there till, midnight at least, sometimes too. And that, repeat. And it's tough in the restaurant world because I grown to a point where I was so passionate about what I do. And through no fault of their own, a lot of these people, a lot of my staff members were in their early 20s. It was a paycheck for them. They're in school full time.
Yeah.
They don't care about my 250 wine list, 250 bottle wine list. They're
probably overwhelmed by it.
They're probably overwhelmed by it. They really don't want to hear me nag them to be wearing pantyhose for the 17th time. And like, they really don't want to hear these things that in my mind are like proper service. And, having worked at the Ritz-Carlton, they kind of ingrained some things into me. And so that some 20-year-olds could frankly care less about. So that was hard too, to see that, to have that disconnect between staff and me. So going to retail seemed like a good option. The hours are better. You still get to talk wine pretty much all day usually too, which is fun. But ideally, I wanted to step into a buying position. And when I saw that probably wasn't going to happen for me, I realized, okay, I'm gonna
create your own thing.
This is right. I'm gonna carve my own path.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, I love that journey.
I would say there's very few somms. More are doing it now, but there's very few somms who have gone this route. A lot more of them typically move into differing roles. A lot of them will even start their own wineries eventually, or their own importation companies, things like that. Yeah. The wine world has lots of positions, surprisingly.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody needs wine.
Yeah, it's true. Well, yeah. We need it. We want it. I don't know.
How much should we have of it?
Right? Which kind
Ooh, that opens
of prompts
up
a good question, right? So how do you balance like the fact that alcohol is your job, right? And not becoming so dependent on it. And even like when we first started talking tonight, you said, you love wine, but you don't want it to be your entire life. So can you talk to us a little bit about what impacts have been there, what you've done to combat it, what it looks like?
Well, it hasn't always been easy. I used to think of it as like a point of pride to be like, oh, I've never done a dry month in my life. I've never done a dry week in the last 10 years because it's my job. That was my excuse. And it was almost like a sense of pride. But then, recently, particularly the desire to move home, I just was noticing, and my friends and I, started to call it like the booze blues, right? Like just the dip after you've had a big night. And when you're in the industry, that's sometimes 2 or 3 times a week where you have a big night where you're out till 2 a.m. and, you wake up like, oh, I didn't even brush my teeth. Like, just like stuff you're like, oh, like, am I an adult or am I still in my 20s? Yeah. So it really came to a head actually right around COVID time. And even though like, I've had other somms say to me, you're like the most delightful drunk on the planet. Like, what are you worried about? You're like, you're so nice. You're so funny. And I was like, it wasn't so much that. It was more that like, because I was drinking, I was also finding I was having like blackouts, like I wouldn't remember things. And like I had this really big heart to heart with one of my friends. And she's like, I just really appreciate everything you said. No idea what I said. Aww. And that was like really hard to hear. And then I was making, these decisions that I would have rather made with a clear head, without alcohol in my system. And it just became a point where I was like, okay, I think I got to take a hard look at this. And was I often drinking at home by myself? Not often by any means. Like I wasn't one of those people that, on a Tuesday night by myself would I get wasted. But it was happening often enough, and there was enough things happening that I knew something had to change. And then COVID came along, and when we went into lockdown, I just was like, well, this seems like a perfect opportunity. I'm going to reset my palate. And I know, and this is no judgment on any of the people who went the opposite route, because I know a lot of people did, and found that, there's nothing else to do. But I got to the point where I just was like, I'm going to stop completely. So I stopped drinking. I stopped everything for the business because I couldn't do events, obviously. And I just took a really hard look at my life and decided, how do I want to move forward with this? Because I want to be healthier. I want to have a better relationship with my employer, for lack of a better relationship with my employer. I wanted to remember these wonderful special moments of being home with my friends. I wanted to go for more hikes. I just wanted to take better care of myself. But it was a really hard thing to do. Like I was getting posts from people being like, are you okay? Do you have COVID? You haven't posted anything in forever. Like all these people saying you should be, you should be doing virtual tastings. You should be doing all these things. Like you should be making the most out of this. And there was all these somms that were doing these amazing things that were super impressive. But for me, I had to stop. Because I needed to know that I could too. Like I needed to be able to see that I could. So I think I went, and it wasn't like I had a set amount of days, but I think I went, so lockdown started in March-ish.
Yep. Mid-March.
Yeah. So like the first time I really had a drink was on my birthday on April 22nd. Yeah. And immediately the next morning felt awful and was like, why am I doing this?
I forgot what this felt like.
Yeah. But I figured out that balance for me is, 2 drinks. So this is my top up. This is after this point, I won't have any more. My new best friend is sparkling water.
Yeah, I love sparkling water.
I do. That was, for me, that was finding that, because when you're out, right,
you have to get another drink in order to,
or someone's just like, let's all just get another round.
Yeah,
or, it's easy to fall into it.
Totally.
And especially if that's what people are expecting of you. So did you find that difficult to be the 2-drink Lesley instead of the free-flowing Lesley? Like, did anyone comment on it, or did you feel?
Not too much. Like, my friends have been my friends since we were children. Like, I feel like a lot of Islanders have this kind of relationship, right? So for them, like, the wine Lesley is almost like a character to them, that they kind of look at her and kind of like, this is so funny. Like, this is so weird that you're like that. So if I said to them I need to stop, they're like, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. They're like, so instead of getting a 24-pack of like Coors Light beer, you want like a 12-pack of like Buble? I'm like, yeah. yes, please. Can you get the orange flavor?
So good.
So they were really supportive. My mom was really supportive as well, which was great. It was a hard transition going back into it, and it was hard to also not suggest wines to people, and to not pass judgment too, and not be like, you guys shouldn't be going to the liquor store anyway. It is not a necessary, like, what were they calling it? It is not a necessary service, or
like an essential service.
An essential service, yes.
Yeah. Well, the liquor store is like right outside of here.
Yeah, so my house was like really close to a liquor store, and I still remember every single day when they like opened up again, there'd be a line all the way out to like the apartment complex right in front of us, and I was always like just watching it in awe, because there's that many people waiting, and they'd be there for like an hour.
Oh yeah.
And like it was crazy.
Yeah. But it is like, it can be a comfort, and it's a coping mechanism for many, and it's really hard to shake that.
Totally. Right? Especially during COVID, everyone was just so uncertain, and doom and gloom every time you went online, and so people thought, oh well, if I'm going to be staying home, I might as well have a friend, which is so sad. And I saw that with a couple people too, and again, no judgment or anything, but what some people did say, like, what else is there to do? Might as well have some wine. And it was almost like a lot of people I noticed too would post on social media that they're starting their wine at 3, and I always felt kind of bad, you know. And again, no judgment, like, if you did do that. Like, it was very weird times, and
we all
totally
just
stressful.
Found a way to cope, right?
Exactly.
But
and my way to cope, because I totally saw like the comedic aspect of it, like it became like a joke, like, and there was so many funny TikToks with wine, and so many funny like little social memes about drinking, and it was just that I was at a different place. Like, I was that was me for the last 10 years, you know, making those funny little jokes. And it just got to a point where I knew that this was already going to be scary and depressing, and alcohol is a depressant, and I just didn't want to go down that path. And I love wine, and I love my life too much to let it destroy me.
Wow. Powerful.
Yeah, and you're also really passionate about wine too, that you don't want to send people down that path too, which I think is really really great too, that you kind of took that aspect, like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't be pushing this and doing online tastings and stuff, because I think I saw that a couple times too. People were doing online tastings, which was interesting.
And which is really hard to do, like, if you're by yourself and you're like, typical tasting is 4 to 6 bottles of wine. What do you do with those bottles of wine after they're open?
Right.
Are you gonna drink them all?
And I remember having a conversation with you where you said, you know, I just don't feel right about telling people to, well, A, go to the liquor store to promote using alcohol as a coping mechanism, but also then promoting people to go out in public where they don't maybe need to be when we're trying to make sure that COVID doesn't spread amongst the island. And, you know, there was multiple factors to it. And good on you to feel secure enough too to say, I need to just stop my business for a little while, because that also is a very scary thing to do when you were just getting started, just building momentum, and then, oh shit, I can't do it now. And you know,
I don't know when I'll be able to or how I'll be able to. And it was you know, a scary moment for sure, but I'm so glad I did it. And my palate was really happy too, because this is another thing people don't realize. Like when you're drinking booze all the time, your tongue, your palate, your flavor sensors get numbed. So it's a really good chance to reset your tongue, and you become a better taster for it. At least that's what I tell myself.
So that first drink on your birthday.
It was too good. That's why I felt
What was
awful.
it? What did you choose as your first drink?
The Gasparo 2011 Brut, which I love. I love that bottle of bubbles. It's only it's like $34, and it has Riesling in it along with Chardonnay and some other hybrid grapes, and it's 2011, so it's like age. It's old. It's an old sparkling wine. It's got this really cool like brioche note. I tried it at the Ice Wine Festival, and was just like, oh my god, what is this? Yeah,
I need my notepad. I don't have my notepad.
I'll send it to you. Don't worry.
You'll hear this again in the editing.
That's cool. So I'm the editor.
This is why we record things.
So true.
Yes.
So, funny question that just came to my mind. Do you... Because, again, I've been researching a lot of self-care, and one thing that keeps coming up is the tongue scraping. Do you do tongue scraping to help your palate or anything?
I have done it before. What I find really helpful, too, is oil pulling, too.
Oh, you do the coconut oil?
Pulling, the coconut oil, mainly after I do a judging, and I've really only done judging of Atlantic Canadian wines, which are like super high acid. And so I find the oil pulling really helps soothe your gums and your tongue and your teeth after all that high acidic wine that almost makes you feel like your enamel is about to crack into. But yeah, I've done the tongue scraping. I've done gargling with like peroxide before, like not just straight peroxide, like watered down. I know this sounds crazy.
Whoa.
I know. It's like 1 part to like. So just take straight. I am not condoning just. I totally pulled a Donald Trump right in now. Maybe the best sommelier ever. The best.
The best. There's nobody better. Nobody better.
Best sommelier.
Can't argue with the facts.
Exactly.
Oh man.
Yeah, there's a lot of tricks. I mean, a big one for sure is giving up sugar, salt, coffee. Some somms do all those things before a blind tasting.
That's dedication.
I know.
Wow.
I have never gotten to that. Yeah, there's all kinds of things you can do to really hone your palate in, but instead of trying to take away things, what I really like to do is add things. So I really like to go to like Jules Country Market when they got all the new flowers to kind of familiarize myself with floral aromas. So this is what violets smell like. This is what roses smell like. They also have a really cool herb section. So you can go like, this is basil, this is sage, this is rosemary. And then at the grocery store, I love to spend time in the produce aisle and pick up like all the different types of fruit and smell and all that. So rather than take away, I like to add those things. And I feel like that's a way to feed the palate in a different kind of way. Feed the brain
cool.
anyway. Yeah.
Very cool. And I think that's can be said for many other things too, right? When people think about like self-care routines or different things like that, it's like, what do you need to stop doing? But if you can add something in instead, then
it makes it a lot
it
better.
might be a little bit easier.
Yes, this is true.
Taking away is hard, right?
It really is. Yeah. Yes. So my other big struggle is with watching TV. As you know, I'm a big, I love the escapism of a good TV show, or movie. I'm not picky.
Something on TV.
That's right. So that's been like my next big hurdle. I feel like I've gotten, I fell off a little bit over the summer months. You like the 2-drink thing. There was a couple of nights where there was more than 2 drinks.
Yeah, fair.
As it happens.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've gotten that much more under control. So then the other thing that I've been really working on is getting the TV watching under control and not using it, enjoying TV, but using it not as an escape, because that's what I was doing.
Yes.
Like the moment I would have something uncomfortable happen, something I didn't like. Turn off brain.
Yeah. I call that, we call that in the coaching world the drift list. So something's hard, and then instead of dealing with it, we drink or we watch TV or we exercise, or like it could be things that people are like, well, how could that be a bad thing? But it's not necessarily a bad thing, but the fact that you're avoiding feeling what's coming up for you, because you just called it escapism, right? So drifting, escaping, whatever it is, it's important to be able to feel your feelings and understand. And I know that's been something that you've been working really hard at too.
A lot.
Which is scary and freeing all at the same time, right?
Yeah. I didn't know I had so many feelings. I don't particularly like them.
Yeah, pretty much every time we hang out now, we cry, both of us, at some point.
Well, when I was telling my friends I was coming, they're like, "Oh, that sounds so cool." I'm like, "I just pray to God I don't cry."
It would be okay if you did.
Yeah, I know, but it would be the first time it's happened on this show, and I was like, I don't want to be the first one to cry.
First crier.
I don't know. I teared up a little bit last episode.
Yeah, that's true.
But then I'm like, turn it off.
Escape. Where's my drift? What am I drifting with? Yeah. Oh man. What's your biggest struggle as an entrepreneur in this whole world that you're in now?
Patience. To know that the work you're putting in is going to pay off. Like, you so want to see results immediately that it can be really hard to wait for the good stuff to happen. And sometimes I catch myself forcing something so that the wrong result occurs. If I just waited, then the right result probably would have happened. Yeah. So patience is probably what I struggle with the most. I just gotta chill out a little bit more.
But it's so nice to get that instant gratification sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
And you want to see success. You want to see, like, I thought I was going to have like a weekly column in the Guardian or a monthly column in the Guardian immediately. I thought like that Compass was going to be like, oh yeah, we got to have somebody doing wine talk on the show. And neither of those places want anything to do with me still. So.
Maybe they'll hear this and change their mind.
There we go.
Hint, hint.
But you do some writing. You do have some great writing that you do.
Yes, that was a huge win, and that came through right before COVID hit. So one of my favorite websites that I've used for years, not to educate myself, to educate staff, is Wine Folly. Great website. You can, if you Google really any question you have about wine and then put Wine Folly at the end, you get these great maps, you get these really fun articles. And so my friend Monica sent me a link saying, hey, they're hiring writers. I'm like, oh, yeah, right.
They'll never take me.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay,
Imposter syndrome. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Never thinking in a million years I would get the job. Lo and behold, I got the job, and, it was like February 16th, and I remember the date because
that's pretty specific.
she's a hero of mine in a very real kind of way. Like, she's so funny and she makes wine so approachable. But here's Madeline Puckett actually zooming in, and I'm looking at her face, and she's like, oh my god, we have similar hair. And I was like,
I made it to be like
you. So getting to not only meet her but get hired on and have articles published, they have over 1 million subscribers. So
amazing.
To have that platform and to feel so validated was a huge win. And I've only gotten 2 articles published so far, but it's still
That's 2 more than many others.
this is true. And they've been they're still my favorite website to use. And to put that on my resume and on my LinkedIn profile has been a pretty good little, a very big win.
Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, thanks.
Good for you.
Yeah, thanks for setting me up for that one, Juliet.
Anytime.
So, Lesley, the most important question of today.
Don't mess it up.
Don't mess it up.
This feels very intimidating.
We're both looking at you. What is self-care to you?
And I know you warned me about this question, and I told myself I was going to think about it. For sure, self-care for me is a balance between exercise for not only my body, but my brain. So I think, I loved your episode about the morning routine. This is a big one for me too. I typically get up and I do like a 10-minute yoga stretch. I do a 5-minute, what I call a wall pose, because I have really tight hamstrings. So I love that both your heads went.
I'm like, tell me more. Wall pose.
Wall pose.
Because I don't know if you know that Steph used to teach yoga. So she knows all the poses.
Well, this might be one I made up.
The Lesley.
This is the Lesley wall pose. So I basically will put my butt up against the wall, like as close as possible. Sorry, I realized how far I went away from the mic there. And I would put both of my legs up like this so that my back is flat. So I'm creating like this shape, right?
Yeah.
And so the whole idea is
Legs at the wall.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I will sit there for 5 minutes and meditate.
Oh, smart.
It's
Use
so
that
good for your
time.
blood flow because that's where your blood doesn't regularly go through that either. Especially if you're working out, you should be doing that a lot.
I know,
Actually,
like my hips.
yeah, you should be. Do
Makes
some
me-
hip
They
no
don't
burners too.
You should, Kara. I knew there was going to go to
Right?
song.
We have to, always.
Love.
But yeah, you're right. I should do that.
It's a really big help for lower back stuff, anything. I haven't had back issues since I started doing it every day, and I did used to have some really bad back issues. So then after that, usually I will either do my little mini workout, as I like to call it, the AAA. Where
Tell us more.
AAA, where I work on my arms, my abs, and my ass.
Yeah, girl.
Focused.
Yeah.
Can I say
Targeted?
I am slightly vain, targeted. I want to look a certain way, and those are the parts of my body that I feel like need the most work. And then I'll go for a run. Depends on how much time I have, but I typically try to go for at least 5 songs. So that's
I like that.
That's
5
how
songs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
5
Long
songs.
songs, like
Well, whenever like LCD Dance Yourself Clean comes on, I'm just like, no, it's like an 8-minute song.
We just put it on random and see how it goes.
Exactly. I hope for the shorter
That's
ones.
cool. So no time goal, no distance goal. It's a 5-song goal.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And then I'll come home, shower. Then I'll usually try to do stuff for my brain. So that's when, if I'm struggling with any kind of emotions, I'll do a little bit of journaling. I will do Duolingo. So I'll do like a little Spanish class. Yeah.
Cool.
Cerveza.
Sí, por favor.
That's all you need to know.
And then I will typically do a little ukulele 15-minute practice as well.
Oh, you should
Trying
have brought the
to learn-
ukulele.
Oh my god. I should have. I do, like, there's something so soothing about the ukulele. Like even if I'm struggling to learn a song, if I get frustrated, I'll just just start riffing, and there's it just sounds so
Sweet.
This is true. Yes, like I'm just like I'm back in the Cayman Islands again, on the beach.
Love it. That's so cool.
Man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then that is usually the end of how I want to spend. Like that's makes me feel like I've fed my body, my soul, my mind in every way that I want to, and then I'll start work. So I'll go into my emails. This is in an ideal world. Like this is this is not every single morning.
Yes.
Do all of these things magically happen. Very often, especially this week, it's been like get up, check the emails, and like I've gotten a little off track this week. I told myself, I was like, you're having a busy week. You need to stick to your morning routine. You will feel better for it. That went to shit.
Yeah, and it does, right? And how do you give yourself that grace?
And that's probably been the best thing about, because at least I'm saying, well, at least you're doing this now. Like this time last year, this time 6-7 months ago, you weren't doing any of these things. So it feels really, really nice to be able to do it. And I mean, the running thing is still like, I'm still so shocked about the running thing. Like when Julianne said to me, oh, you started running? Like, we should do a marathon, like the half marathon. I was like, okay.
And then you killed it.
I mean, there was doing that little stretch by, if you're ever looking for a great place to run, the national parks are, it's
beautiful.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You get good breeze, so you stay cool. The ground is paved, so it's really easy to run on. And the trail goes the entire length of the beach, so you get beautiful smells too, and great views. So
how lucky are we?
Yeah, we really are. I love this island so much. I'm so happy to be home, and I'm just so grateful that I'm finding a way to make money, to
have this lifestyle.
To have this lifestyle where,
absolutely.
I mean, one of my favorite things is that me and you can go for hikes on Tuesday afternoon, right? And then it'll be, what are you getting up to in terms of work after? Because we know that, we took a chunk out of our day to be able to do it, but
to go to the trails when they're not swarmed.
When it's just me and you, and we can cry in peace.
Don't have to worry about who we might run into.
Big Clay.
Just having a moment. There's no shame in it, but
no.
I don't necessarily want to share those moments with the world.
Yeah.
Me either.
Yeah.
As time goes on, too, and I do more in-home tastings, I'm starting to know more and more people, which is very exciting, but also, less likely that I'm going to be,
anonymous.
As anonymous as I would like to be in some situations. But the one thing, and this is funny, we talked about this, I do think that I need to start working in my more comfortable kind of look, because this is, my Instagram presence is very, you usually see me in whatever outfit I'm wearing to my tasting.
Right.
And I approach my tastings in a sense that, like, I have to somewhat stand out in the room to get that respect, I guess, but I'm much more comfortable just in a pair of jeans and a sweatshirt.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna find that's the next balance.
I like
that.
We're
Gonna
find.
Yeah.
Part 2 with Lesley will be.
I'm like,
I love that.
Nobody's hiring me anymore.
I don't understand. Like, her hair's a mess. She's just whatever.
Just food stains.
Free flowing. It's all good. I think it's cool, the journey that you've been on, and like I've known you now, and I've like felt like you were a dear friend from the moment I met you, which is such a cool connection to have.
Agreed.
And I love how you're taking care of yourself, and being an entrepreneur is stressful and it's difficult, but it's also so amazing, and your self-care morning routine is awesome.
Yes.
Even if you get to do little bits of it, not necessarily all of it. How important has that been for you in kind of pulling yourself out of that slump that you were finding yourself in earlier this year?
Oh, paramount. Like it's a game changer. Yeah. Like it's made all the difference. I mean, I wouldn't say I was clinically depressed. I would say I was very close to the edge. I would say I was not doing well, and I feel really good. You know, like I feel like I'm back. A perfect example was for the first time in a long time when I was dancing with my friends on a vacation. I wasn't feeling self-conscious about it, and that it felt like it had been years since I'd felt that way. And so just being able to feel that comfortable in my body again, to feel that free that to me was like a true moment. And I think my friends have really seen it as well. Like they're like, you're doing so much better, Les. Like it's so lovely to see you pull yourself out of it. And so I'm very grateful to have found those things. And I really feel the same way, Julianne. Like when me and you met, like it was just, and this doesn't happen often in your older, like as you get older, it's hard to make new friends. And we were thrown together in a situation where, you know, it would have been easier to maybe maintain a little bit of a wall, right? Because it was kind of a professional thing. But I'm just so glad we bonded, and I'm so glad to have you, because for sure you're the person that I talk to about these things, and that feel the most at ease to be able to say, like, this is what I'm trying, this is working, this isn't working, you know. And I mean, I'm doing great. Do I still have days where I'm like, whoa, this sucks?
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, I still have down days for sure, but I'm also in a better place to accept those days as down, and to not let the down days turn into down weeks, and to not turn to the booze, to in fact turn the other direction instead, which is a big help. And I also feel like it's made me talk more about wine and food, because I think wine is definitely what my business is, but bringing food into the conversation really does help with that balance too, and how important it is to pair. I mean, if I'd had a couple of, you know, veggie burgers, because I know you're a vegetarian, I would have brought them. And we could have paired really nicely with this bold cab. But a portobello, actually, a portobello burger would have been really good. But like I said, it's been a busy week, so
Well, I hope you can get some self-care in the next couple days, and relax and enjoy what you've done this week, because what a great partnership with Discover Charlottetown too, right? That's been really cool for you. So
it's been great, and I hope that we can continue doing things like this, like any festivals that happen in Charlottetown. I hope there's now like a wine tasting component to it.
Absolutely.
It's been really nice getting to know some of the other restaurateurs too. So that's been good. It's been good.
Cool. So for those who are listening and not familiar with you, where can they find you?
On Instagram, you can find me at Stellar Somm, STELLARSOMM. Somm is the cool, hip way of saying sommelier. So cool. It sounds so cool. This actually has been my Instagram handle since 2012, and my mom helped me come up with it. So.
Cute.
Go, Mom.
The best.
Right?
Go, Mom.
Yeah. And you can also find me on Facebook under the same heading, but Stellar Somm Wine Experts.
Yeah.
I'm on LinkedIn as well, and I'm very open to, if you have any questions. I know you're not supposed to use it this way, but slide into my DMs. I know that's
Slide into your DMs today.
We're all about the inappropriate comments here.
That's not how it's supposed to be said, but send me a message. I will. There you go. I will answer all your questions, and I love to do in-home tastings. Are probably my favorite, because this is where people are the most comfortable. There's so many themes in the world of wine that we can do. We can do a wine kits tasting sometime. I mean, it'd be an expensive one up front, but it would be it could be an interesting way to do it. We could also do box wine. You can do rosé. You can do Cabernet from around the world. There's so many great themes out there. And like I said, I'm trained in cocktails. I'm a big whiskey drinker. did a really cool bachelor party this summer with whiskey.
Yeah.
Cool. And also Christmas is coming up, so a lot of Christmas parties. That'd be like a really fun idea too.
Exactly.
So many
Thank
options.
You, Steph. My brand.
Love it. It's been so great having you here tonight, Lesley. Thank you for your time. I know you rushed right from tasting to us. That's the kind of week you're having, but that's the entrepreneur life at times too. So find that balance, take care of yourself, and keep bringing all this great wine into our lives. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, cheers, ladies.
Yes. Cheers. We still have enough left for a cheers. Yay!
Bing, bing. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Thriving Tides. Hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay connected. And remember, don't fight the rip currents.